Still no games for the Sixers, but plenty to talk about as the NBA Cup is underway. We're in the losers bracket here in Philadelphia. But, most importantly, they get some days off.
Speak
some
for yourself in that
time
losers bracket, buddy.
Well, the basketball losers bracket. Basketball, some break time for the Sixers, some practice time as well to get everybody ready to go for the 3 games that they have over the course of 2 weeks. A fantastic scheduling by the NBA overall. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, presented by our good friends from Bet365. As always, and as we tell you about Bet365, again, you can jump in there and make some wagers on those games tonight with New York and who is it? New York and
Atlanta,
and then Golden State and Houston in the second game as well. You can do so by getting in there with Bet365. Download the Bet365 app by using the code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365 alongside Derek Bodner. Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens. Brianna's here as well. All of you in the chat. These guys are not ordinary. They're fantastic.
Pretty ordinary. But I will say that, so that means that over that 2-week stretch, we will have spent more time talking about the Sixers than they will have spent playing basketball.
And when you consider that we do 5 shows a week during the summer when the Sixers are decidedly not playing basketball, I think the ratio probably skews in our favor more than the team, right?
Absolutely. Well, practice is back. After missing Monday and Tuesday following their win on Sunday over the Chicago Bulls, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey on the floor with the rest of the teammates. They had some downtime and some practice time today to get ready for the Indiana Pacers on Friday, the 10-win Indiana Pacers team. And with it, Nick Nurse had some things that he shared, as always, post-practice about the lineup, some adjustments, maybe to the starting group. We talked about, towards the end, their top 10 and what the top 10 players might look like for you right now. And Nick Nurse did share a little bit about that today. We'll also get into a few other things later on involving the basketball team, some Christmas Day things with the Sixers playing on Christmas Day. We'll throw that in there, mix that in as well, and a little Paul George conversation. But Kyle, being at practice today, while we talked about the top 10 of what this rotation, not necessarily what it looks like, but this top 10 players right now that Nick Nurse is leaning on for his group right now, where he's kind of cut it short now, where we thought Ricky is in there a little bit. KJ has jumped up a little bit more.
And I think Ricky's still on the fringes of it for sure. Just not one of
outside
those locked in
10 that we discussed. But he mentioned some things, not only with the starters, but the second unit of what that might look like, how they might look like now, and how that may have come together over these 4 wins in 5 games over the last couple of weeks.
Well, so first off, one of the things I was curious about going to practice today was like, okay, Nick, for the first 2 months, the priority has just been, let's get healthy, right? Like it's hard to even conceptualize what the team looks like, what you might need to do with lineups, trades, whatever, before you get these guys on the floor. And so I asked Nick, and so what becomes priority number 1 now? And frankly, he said, well, now we have to actually look at them play together, right? It's not just, oh, no, they're out there and they're healthy and that's great. It's we have to put our critical thinking caps on, go into the film room, look at all these different lineups together and say, okay, we're evaluating versus our preconceived notions of what the season would look like, what this lineup would look like, and go from there. And obviously, certainly locking in on offense because offense has been the biggest problem. Later on in Nurse's presser today, got asked about Jared McCain and kind of what his role looks like. He's been in and out of the starting lineup. Kyle Lowry has come back into the lineup, and that's taken some minutes away from him. And we've spent a lot of time arguing the merits of should Jared start. We did a show earlier this week on what that lineup should look like. And right now, it seems that Nurse views McCain as a bench offense piece, a guy's going to come in and score the basketball, get some reps on ball, some reps off ball. He's not pigeonholing him in a backup point guard or backup shooting guard type of role. That's going to be fluid. But then the interesting part was, and it's what we kind of framed the show around, the idea that while the starting lineup to open games might be the same or similar every night, that the second half groups are where he's going to make the most active adjustments, and that maybe it'll be responding to game flow rather than you come into a game and it's, oh, this team's got more size, so we play a bigger lineup. It doesn't sound like they want to be toggling between too many different starting lineups, but want to see, okay, if this is our flat group, and let's just say that's Maxey, Oubre, George, Yabusele, Embiid, or something close to that. What do they see in the first 24 minutes, and how do they react to that? And I think while I still want Jared McCain in there, as we went over in the show earlier this week, I think it does make a good bit of sense. And it certainly tracks with kind of what we thought about Nurse coming into his tenure and what you were hoping for, which is a guy who's going to be proactive with adjustments, somebody who's going to look at just a single half of basketball, see what the game is telling you, and going, I'm changing this, this, and this in halftime, and we're going to react all over the place, whether it's lineup, structure, or whatever. So I think that we're getting a little bit more of who I think we probably expected Nick Nurse to be, if he holds up to what he's telling us.
Well, that was one of the things
today
that he was lauded about when the opening happened for the 76ers, and you looked at Nick Nurse as one of the top options, if not the top option, as a head coaching candidate, where Milwaukee was discussed, Phoenix was discussed, and the 76ers ultimately landing him. It was because of his creativity, where we discussed it of, where's that creativity been for the 76ers? Injuries last season, injuries, of course, this season. So we haven't really had a chance to see it. Plus, different types of personnel, where we discussed those 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" wings, where he could get really creative with those lineups in Toronto, where that's not the case here, especially when you have a hub of a big man of Joel Embiid, of how that goes. But speaking of that second half group, it played itself out against the Chicago Bulls, where Yabusele got that start, Derek, and then Jared McCain gets to start in the second half, to that point of what they saw in that first 24 versus what he wanted to try coming in for the final 24 of that as well.
And before we get to Derek's thoughts on this kind of arrangement, that's the exact example Nick brought up was, look, he has liked playing bigger recently. And part of the philosophy going into the Bulls game was, we want to play big. We think that'll help us against them. And came out of the first half thinking, well, that didn't really line up with what we thought. And so let's just try something different in the second half. Let's go to Jared, who's been playing well, and that ended up working out.
And then you can also point out the fact that when we were discussing it in the moment, that Andre Drummond played 7 minutes in the first half and didn't see any time in the second.
Yeah. I think for the most part, where I default to is you want your most versatile defensive lineup, within reason. Obviously, you need to score the basketball as well. Your most versatile defensive lineup to be on the floor to start, because that tends to go against the other team's best scoring lineup. So you want to be able to match up against that. I do worry pretty significantly if, let's say, Yabu hits a stretch where he's struggling from the perimeter, which will happen at some point. I know he's shooting really well now, but everyone goes through those ruts, especially someone who doesn't have a long track record as a shooter. And then Kelly's shooting the heck out of the ball over the last 7, 8, 9 games, but he is a very streaky shooter. I don't expect that to change. I worry about the scoring in that starting lineup a little bit. I do get a little bit of reassurance, just the way, not necessarily in the effectiveness, although effectiveness does paint how we view things quite a bit, but also in the approach that Kelly has had here since, really in the last game since Joel returned. That has been nice to see. I need to see more of it. So I am less concerned about McCain starting, although I would love to see just prove a theory of how well Maxey McCain, along with a big front court, can hold up. I would love to see that theory proven, in part because you might need to pivot to that lineup in the playoffs. It's one thing to be able to play that lineup maybe in the second half or even against other bench units. Another thing to go up against Boston and see how they hold up. I'd love to do that now before you get to the part of the season that truly matters, if you get the part of the season that truly matters. But my bigger concern is that in 2 of the last 4 games, Jared has played 20 or 21 minutes. That, to me, is what's unacceptable. It's one thing I might disagree a little bit with the starting lineup, although I like I said, I can understand Yabu and Kelly starting because of the size and defensive versatility. I might not 100% agree with it, but I can understand it. You can't let Jared be playing 20 minutes per night or even 20 minutes on a semi-consistent basis. He needs more time. That is my number one concern. I still probably would have preferences that would include Jared in the starting lineup. I understand the argument against it or for other lineups, but we just need to make sure that Jared is playing more than he has been lately.
I think that's the perfect way of putting it, right? We all agree, like, Jared at this point is what is the floor that you think Jared McCain should play? on a
25
given
to
night.
30.
So his average is 25.6 in
Yeah.
the 22 games. You mentioned how they've been down over the last few, but absolutely between 25 and 30, no question. And if we, even before looking at what his number is on average for minutes played, we all would agree that, 25 to 30. And he has shown that he can play 30, high 30s if needed
and be effective at the end of games.
Exactly. And that is the other point of, as we've talked about the starters and how he needs to be belonging in there in that starting group, the one thing that is important is we have seen him in those closing lineups a lot. So whether he's starting or not, he's going to get his 25 to 30, maybe higher, depending on how the game is trending, what he has done. And certainly more often than not, he's going to be in those closing lineups. And Derek, when you mentioned the most versatile overall, we've already seen where while Caleb Martin hasn't shot the ball well at all, he has gotten worse over the last couple. Maybe he's going to get better where
I
Kelly,
hope so.
He has to. It can't be it can't stay at this level. But Kelly Oubre has struggled. Yabusele has shot well. Things are starting to trend downward for them. Well, for Yabusele a little bit, where it's trending up for Kelly Oubre. And we know the ebbs and flows of seasons where the guys are going to shoot a certain way. Caleb Martin will probably get his back. We saw Jared McCain for 2-3 games not shoot as well. Tyrese Maxey also. And those things will start to level itself out. And maybe Caleb Martin will be back in that rotation for more minutes than he has been because of what the shot is not doing. And plus, as we've talked about so much, when you discussed Joel at practice today, Paul George back, Tyrese Maxey, they haven't had this in all season consistently. So maybe it will track so much better where you're not really relying on Caleb Martin to hit as many jump shots as you would hope that he would, like he's playing against the Boston Celtics in the playoffs, because of those other players being on the floor with him, and it won't hurt as much when he's out there on the floor with those guys. So all of that, again, will start to balance out if they're out there for enough time to give us a better sample size. Nurse mentioned it today where they can finally get a chance to see it. The sample size.
Just put stuff on tape.
It means a lot. Yeah. Caleb Martin, we talked about him out there jacking 16 shots in these games and being a playmaker and doing all these things when he shouldn't. Now he's not going to have to. He's going to play a role, and that role might just work out where he doesn't have to shoot 6 threes in a game. It might be 3. And while he's lining it up at that line, looking at his feet, he might knock it down instead with that weird hitch that he has going on.
I will still go back to, though, one of my keys, especially in the short term, because I expect Tyrese to get back to where he was in the long term, but you need to get him back there short term. If you're going to make up the number of games you've got to make up to get out of that play-in tournament or area, you need to get Tyrese back to playing the way that he is capable of playing. And I do think one of the ways you do that is I think Jared McCain helps do that a lot more than either Yabu, but especially Kelly in that starting lineup. It's just having nobody on the floor that you can really help off of, having, 5 quick decision makers on the floor. It becomes so much tougher to sell out on the perimeter against Tyrese. You would hope that Embiid's presence and Paul George's presence is enough to counteract that. But one thing I always say with shooting, great shooters, every one of them on the floor helps you. And bad shooters, everyone on the floor hurts you. And right now, with the way Tyrese is playing, and look, he played obviously a lot better here in that last game, but I just want him to get back to consistently where he was. I think part of that is changing the way that the defenses defend him. And I think McCain helps that more than Kelly does.
I mean, buddy, we've had plenty of examples of how just one bad shooter could derail the whole offense, right? I've watched lineups that had Joel Embiid, Seth Curry, Furkan, and other guys who can shoot with one Matisse Thybulle
or one
completely fall flat on their face.
We don't need to.
Well, yeah.
A couple guys we're not allowed to say the names of, but we're talking about.
We don't say Voldemort's name on this show, although I just said his name. So yes, that's obviously true. I think I will say I'm more focused on where you went earlier, Derek, which is the floor for minutes can't erode because you're moving him to the bench, right? Like you can make the arguments for, hey, we want Jared to come off the bench. And it could even be for developmental reasons, right? That you want to have him come in as Maxey goes out and have him immediately be like, you're the bench captain, right? You're the guy on the perimeter leading things and doing that. But in order to do that, you have to let go of the Kyle Lowry security blanket to some degree, right? And what we've seen, the trend so far has been Lowry pretty directly steals minutes from McCain, right? There's an almost 1-to-1. He goes from low 30s minutes to low to mid 20s minutes, and Lowry gets, let's say, 10, 11, 12 minutes. So it's clear where the coach is taking Jared's minutes and allotting them. So what I want to see is, if you are going to bring him to the bench, you are going to have him in that type of reserve role, you got to rely less on Lowry and, give Jared a chance to succeed and fail in a number of roles, right? He's going to get minutes with Maxey. He's also going to get minutes as a backup point guard and guy running the offense, mostly playing hopefully alongside Joel Embiid. So you lower the burden of responsibility on him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he's had such a great rookie year so far and has been able to do a number of things that, frankly, I don't think we were prepared for him to do right away.
100%.
So allow him to have a fairly expansive role. If you need to dial it back at some point, dial it back. But I don't think we've seen anything recently to suggest like now is the time to cut into his minutes, especially when someone like Lowry or Gordon is the player who's going to get those minutes.
And there are 5 games where they've won 4 of their last 5. Jared McCain, going back to October 30th, where they defeated Detroit, he played 29 minutes, 22, 39, 21, and 28 in those 5
And the 39
games.
was when Lowry was not available to play. It was the second half of back-to-back.
And that was the game that he scored 24 against the Orlando Magic in that first game of that 2-game home series. And he scored 24 in that one with 7 rebounds, 3 assists, which was his best game of that stretch. He had 17 against Charlotte in their 6-point win as well. We'll talk a little bit more about Tyrese Maxey, where he fits in that. Paul George, Derek mentioned him, where he might fit in it all and how that ultimately plays out as well with McCain, Maxey, and Embiid on the floor. We'll talk about it all on this Wednesday. It's raining here. It's nasty out.
It is not a nice one out today. I hope everyone is bunkered down in the house with some
work from
blankets home. And maybe a space heater if you're getting chilly.
Some hot chocolate, whatever it might be. We'll discuss it.
I guess it's not that cold, but it's definitely raining.
Well, just comfortable, the feel. We'll discuss it. Hot chocolate, coffee, or hot tea? Which one is it? We'll talk about all that too. PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Bet365.
All right, we want to tell you about Empire Today, your go-to spot for flooring if that is something on your to-do list. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is so good that they do have some copycats, but those copycats can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, or speed, so they advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles for you. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. You just snap a picture and you can instantly see how the new floors will look in your room. Flooring is all that Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. And they also service their own warranties, so with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
And you need some funds to make sure you take care of that in-home project overall. And the place for you to go is TrueMark Financial. But it's also a place for you to teach your kids about proper financial responsibilities overall. TrueMark Financial. Right now, if you have kids, maybe you don't have kids. Maybe it's your niece and your nephew, and you want to teach them some really good things. Some young cousins there as well. And the ultimate playbook for teaching financial responsibility is with a free Greenlight account through courtesy of TrueMark Financial. The Greenlight app is changing the game, helping kids and teens learn how to earn, save, and spend wisely. I mentioned this before. While I do have kids, and my youngest, make sure that she was set up in that way as well, to have a Greenlight account, to make sure she understood how to use her money, how to manage the money properly, responsibly, even after school when they want to go to the nearest fast food spot or the ice cream place and use the money she could use that particular Greenlight account with that she has there, of course, courtesy of that app. They can set up savings goals, track the spending, and even getting an allowance all right there in the Green Light app. And here's the really cool part. Each kid gets their own debit card so they can make purchases and learn their real world money skills like my daughter did while you stay in control from your phone. With the holidays right around the corner, again, not just for your daughter or your son, you can do that for your nephew, your niece, your young cousin that you want to help out in that way. And the parents say it's cool, right? Now is the perfect time to introduce those kids to Green Light. Get signed up today. Visit truemark.com/greenlight for more information. Once again, that's truemark.com/greenlight for more information. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here, presented by Bet365. I'm already seeing Money Mar saying, it's 61 degrees, fellas. Relax. It's raining though, Mar. That's the thing. It's raining. It changes while it's 61 degrees.
It does.
You said the throw blanket, right? You want to get the throw blanket, maybe get your beverage of choice and relax, sit back. And that's why.
Hey, Winona's saying hot chocolate with marshmallows and some fresh chocolate chip cookies. So
You know I'm in on
Winona's
chocolate chip cookies.
picking up what you're putting down over
100%. Absolutely. 100%. So come on, Mar. Just go ahead and get your chocolate chip cookies. And
maybe
relax.
your house is drafty, you know? It's just every once in a while you get that cold chill.
Maybe you didn't turn the heat on yet, which is, it's been cold overall. It has been cold, so you want to turn the heat on in general.
Yes, sir.
It's supposed to get cold again tomorrow, so Mar, get
when
that blanket.
When it's warm out, it's been raining. Now it's going to stop raining. It's going to get cold again.
Back in the 30s, baby.
Perfect.
Right
bah
back
humbug.
At it.
That's what I said.
Right back at it. So, Derek, though, 25 shots for Tyrese Maxey in that win on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
First career triple-double. 22 points, 25 shots that he took in all the minutes that he played, but it helped to get Embiid back. Paul George is out there and figuring out the rotation of what Nurse wants to do. But in order for McCain to get that time, we've seen McCain without Embiid. Now you need to see him with Embiid alongside Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. We'll get to George, but with Maxey seemingly getting back to himself, as you said, you have to get him going. Yeah, why not have him where he's going to start getting going next to Joel Embiid playing off of him? That makes it easier for the young guy to play much better off of those guys too.
Yeah. No, and it really is like you want to see and you want to maximize as like Jared McCain should be completely tied to Joel Embiid's hip. Like their minutes should be tied almost perfectly. So taking like a 6-minute stretch in the first and third quarters, maybe not the third quarter, because as we mentioned at the top of the show, one of the things Nick Nurse said today is he might adjust the second half starting lineup. But even in theory, taking 6 to 12 minutes out of that lot of pool of minutes, it's just not what I would prefer to see. And I know a lot of people will say, well, Kelly's played better with Embiid too. And I agree with that. Like we saw that not in a huge sample last year, but in a big enough sample that he certainly plays better. But McCain is just so important for your long-term future of the team. And he's someone that you pencil in for as long as, the rest of the Joel Embiid era. Expediting your just how much information you have and how well those two can play off each other. Because McCain is not perfect, right? Clearly, like a point of attack defense is something we're going to worry about. In order for him to justify those minutes and really get the most out of him, he has to be able to play well off of Joel Embiid. I just want to see that process expedited, get them some chemistry. And like I said, 6 to 12 minutes, they will get other opportunities throughout the game to play together, but I just wouldn't throw away 6 to 12 more minutes of it.
Now, another thing that maybe we have to think about as we're going to start seeing what the combinations that Nick wants on the floor together. One thing that I wonder after watching Sunday's game in Chicago, I kind of came into the season expecting Maxey and George would be together for bench groups. And then it's Joel as the solo star. He gets kind of run everything. But given how successful that Maxey Embiid pick and roll is and how much built up chemistry there is there, I wonder if in the short term, they're going to lean heavily into that and tie a lot of their minutes together. And then McCain ends up getting the Paul George and bench guys lineups. Like he becomes a more integral figure there. Because I would say I generally agree with you. I want Jared playing with Joel as much as possible. Not only is that a player archetype that has had a ton of success with Joel historically, we've already seen flashes of chemistry between those two that you want to invest in it now for the dividends later. But I do wonder if in their quest to try to maximize the short term as much as possible, they might reconsider, like, okay, who is Jared playing with? And more pertinently, who is Joel playing with in the bench groups? And how do we structure those lineups to get the absolute most out of him individually?
Yeah. And it is also something where like Maxey's biggest weakness right now, outside of the fact that he hasn't been able to shoot all year, which is inexplicable.
Which that one's just bizarre.
We don't expect that to carry over long term. But his biggest weakness offensively is when he's a driver, he just isn't looking for his teammates. He's not really a great creator off of the drive. He's a lot better off the pick and roll with that pocket pass to Embiid. Also, it helps when you have one of the best mid-range shooters on the planet who's 7 foot and can shoot over anyone. That will get you assists. But his reads are better out of the pick and roll and that dribble handoff with Joel than they are when he is playing without Joel and he's forced to try to create everything off of the drive. So it makes sense to also tie Maxey's minutes to Embiid's, especially when you go away from the starting lineup. It's a great thing to have where two of your more integral pieces are really great fits with Joel Embiid, but it does mean when you're trying to, stagger your lineups and trying to make sure that you keep the offense afloat without Joel Embiid, you are going to have to make a sacrifice there. I do get that. And I think
two things though. One, I think that they were in the spot where, like we've talked about, they just need a win. So whatever was working, get the win, hammer it, and can bleed that thing dry, like we talked about. But then the other thing that you just brought up, Derek, with the passing of Maxey not being outside of the pocket pass to Embiid to get it going with their two-man game, I would say that 2 or 3 games prior, as 2 in particular, back-to-back games where we felt like he was making the right passes to those guys in the corner and in the middle, where it was KJ Martin, where the first half KJ was catching them, making good decisions. Second half, not so much. They lose the game. Corner, kicking it out to KJ Martin for threes, who doesn't want to take them, or Yabusele not making the shots like he has been. Caleb Martin, the same thing. So while he has gotten better at it, but they weren't making those shots in those games, and he wasn't being aggressive enough looking for his own shot, where he was questioning some of those and instead making, I'm going to be the facilitator here. Paul George is back. Let me find these other guys to get them some shots, where he probably should have turned the keys again for himself to just get to the basket, try to finish those pull-up jump shots that we talked about to get those wins. So he, again, now has to find that balance. And with Embiid back, it kind of makes it easier for him, because you know that Joel is also going to tell him, go score. Right. This is working. Now go do your other stuff. And as much as we keep hammering and pounding and we keep saying, my man, pull up and hit a jump shot at 15. So when they close out on you again, you can hesitate and get to the basket on the next one, because they have to close out and make a decision on how to defend you. Not to mention, this guy keeps knocking down these 15-footers. It's going to open up so much for him. And then when he does do that, and Jared McCain is the one in the corner now, and it's not Caleb Martin, and it is Jared McCain, shot ready, laces all lined up, where he knocks that shot down, then all of that stuff would just look so much better. And it goes back to McCain again, that's why he has to be on the floor, because when that spacing, when everything collapses there in that paint and they get those touches, boom, right out to the corner to that young guy. And even if he shoots 9 and only makes 3, I'd imagine that those 3 makes will probably come in a big spot for them when they needed those 3 points.
And I think one of the challenges for Jared is going to be, we've seen, it's very encouraging that he can scale up already as a rookie and be a higher volume, higher usage guy that scores efficiently, play makes, and can buoy the offense a little bit. But that's more of what he's used to, right? Of being a featured player, where you can shoot yourself into a rhythm. If you miss a few shots, it doesn't matter, because you're getting the ball next time down the floor. Whereas, and I'm not saying that they're looking him off, or if he misses early shots, that he just gets sent to the phantom zone or anything. But there is a limit at some point if Jared doesn't play well, if Jared's not making shots. When you're fully healthy, 1, either you won't play, or 2, you'll play less and you won't have as prominent a role on offense. And so there is going to be that adjustment period for him that he's working through that. That'll be not just this year, but that's like a long-term career thing, right? As you learn to play with other great players at this level, you do have to accept, hey, some nights I'm only going to get 6 shots, 8 shots, 10 shots, while Joel dominates the ball, Tyrese dominates the ball. And so I think we've already seen that he can do that situationally, but that'll be the challenge for him in the short to medium term, is just kind of riding the roller coaster and figuring out, what is his role every night, and just maximizing all his touches and his shot opportunities that he does get.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is really just talking through this. It's like, I cannot believe how absolutely crucial a 20-year-old that
Crazy.
they expected nothing out of can be for almost every lineup combination that we're throwing out there.
Mhm.
But it turns out when you have really only one guy on the team who can shoot and create off the dribble, adding a second one who can play on ball, off ball, and create, really, really vital skills.
And here's the most telltale sign of all of that. Early in the year, you would have said, wow, man, these lineups without Maxey, I can't believe they're doing this. Now it's neither of Tyrese or Jared are on the floor. And like, that's a big step for a rookie to take this soon into his career, where you got to survive the Maxey minutes, right? It's how you come into the season thinking about it. And now if one of them is not on the floor, it's like, what the hell is the coach doing? Get him out there. We trust him.
It's also just wild how quickly I've just developed complete and utter confidence that he is like, oh, he's one of your more consistent players. That should not be the case. He's 20 years old playing his first NBA season, but here we are.
Right now, sitting at the top of the rookie ladder, if that matters to anybody, where I think it's Steph Castle is number 2 behind him, where Jalen Wells was the guy before, the week before. So
I'm a Steph Castle guy. I enjoy watching him play.
So am I. Tough player in the right spot too, man. Chris Paul right there teaching him that point guard position. Yeah. He is in the right spot. All right, well, we have to talk about another guy who can teach a lot of things, and that is Paul George and where he might fit into it all. We've mentioned him, but how does Nick Nurse get him going with Jared McCain maybe as the leader of that bench group, or just simply because he hasn't played with Embiid and Maxey as much and finding his way? You know you can bleed that pick and pop, pick and roll drive with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Where does Paul George fit into all of this? We'll see what you guys say. Get the thoughts of Derek and Kyle when we come back here on PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Bet365. And as we sit here with you, watching the game last night, I saw where at one point Jalen Suggs in that game, they wound up losing in the NBA Cup to Milwaukee. Milwaukee moves on to Las Vegas to the semifinals. But Jalen Suggs, they're already beat up. Everybody's beat up on that team, from Franz Wagner to Paolo Banchero. Jalen Suggs gets beat up. And I'm like, man, I got to send these guys. I got to send them the card. Send them to Rothman and so they can go get fixed. Now, not necessarily because you want to see the Sixers maybe catch up to them in the standings. They have a ways to go. But for them to get right, and they have a great medical team, Rothman is so good as well. So if they want a second opinion, we know where to go. So whether it's the joints aching, the hands cramping, busted up thumbs, maybe some other injuries that are very serious, Rothman is the place for you to go. At Rothman Orthopedics, their physicians are not only specialized in orthopedics and clinical research, but they are fellowship trained to treat specific areas of the body. Mine was the Achilles and the ACL. And since 1970, their physicians have remained committed to research, innovation, and minimally invasive procedures to get you back to what you specialize in. That's playing basketball, folks. They're at Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in you. Patients will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care at Rothman Orthopedics, from diagnosis to discharge. And also, they provide their patients with every service and procedures necessary, such as x-rays, orthotics, and bracings, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. And you keep all that stuff in the house just in case it happens again. And you got to go back to Rothman. I have a Tupperware full of the stuff that I just need that I have. It's ridiculous. But
Sickening.
And you know what I have on there? A Rothman sticker right on that Tupperware. I mean, on that bin of all these braces and all kinds of crap that I have in there. Rothman Orthopedics, they specialize in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
And guys, I know Money Mar pointed out that it's 60 degrees outside, but it is typically the time of year where you have to worry a little bit about pneumonia. Our friends at Rite Aid are here to help you out. Adults aged 50 and older are now eligible for the pneumonia vaccine. It was previously 65 plus. CDC lowered the age recommendation, so you should get in there. Millions of people get pneumonia every year. It's a respiratory illness. Fall and winter are a time when germs that cause respiratory disease typically spread more throughout our communities. So now's the time to get the pneumonia vaccine and help yourself stay healthy. And some people who get pneumonia, by the way, have mild symptoms. So you got to stay on top of your health at all times. Here's the best news. It is usually no cost with your insurance. Getting vaccinated is easy. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule online at riteaid.com. Unsure what you may need? Just ask your pharmacist for a personal recommendation. Stop by your local Rite Aid today. Speaking of personal recommendations, Flyers99 in the chat made a recommendation that the show should dress up like Boys to Men videos for a theme day. I don't think anyone in here wants to hear us singing Motown Philly's back again.
That was already too much.
Clip it, Bree.
I don't think that one's going to fly.
And which one are we talking? If you're talking about Motown, they had bow ties on it. I'm not wearing a bow tie.
No, I think the white sweaters with the red hats. I think that's what he was talking about.
But they had bow ties on that.
Did they?
I thought. I might be wrong, but I thought.
I don't think I own a bow tie. I don't think that's even in my.
If the Sixers get to the finals and lose, I will do a personal rendition of End of the Road. How about that?
Can you just do it when we're not in the studio with you?
What if they win though? We got to find. Got to find a theme song from.
Then
Boys
it's got to
Men.
be a positive one.
Yeah, positive Boys and Men after they win. No question about it. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here, presented by Bet365. And Flyers99 also said they owned 93
maybe one sweet day
to 99.
Is that if they win?
That's good. You got to get Mariah Carey in here with you.
Yeah.
To pull that. Unless Bree's
Mariah Bree out
there. Exactly.
I don't know what Bree's singing voice is like, but
I trust it. I definitely trust it. All right, Kyle, where do they go with Paul George? If let's just say it is the Paul George, Jared McCain second lineups, but in general, with the second unit, in general though, while he is we've always talked about he's the guy you can just plug and play. He'll figure it out. He's a vet. He's seen everything, but you still want it to also just work. Not that he has to just get in there and drop 29, grab 7 boards, 6 assists, and it's all just a ho-hum, just another night for Paul George. But there are some times where you want to see some actions drawn. You don't want to see where we've talked about him dribbling the air out of the ball too much there in the mid-post or dribbling in with 8 seconds on the shot clock on the perimeter where you still have an opportunity to run something and not just dribbling the basketball. So how does he fit into it? Is it because it's a seamless fit, or do you want to see some things called for him, Embiid, McCain, and Maxey as well?
Yeah, well, some of it is just going to be tapping into him as a spacer, right? Just knowing that he's always there. And like
a big chunk of the Sixers' offensive problems can be like, Joel, Tyrese, and Paul need to make open shots.
Yeah, like some of this is just I understand when the shot quality is lower, it's harder to hit a high percentage and all that. And like there have been stretches where he's not getting good looks. There have also been stretches where Paul George is just missing open threes. So there does just have to be a period where he makes the open shots, right? But some of this is so I have a much better understanding as someone who watches Joel and has watched Joel every single night for, however long now, 8 years, whatever it's been that he's been on the floor every night or close to every night.
Mm-hmm. We wish.
That's why I advocate for getting the ball close to the basket, start the game, get the rhythm going, get him to the free throw line, and then you start expanding the range.
Are you talking about those, like we've seen him with the fadeaways, the back to the basket?
Then you move him out to the elbows. Then you move him out to he can launch some threes, right? And with Paul, I don't have as much of a feel for it, but I would say we've seen a little bit of maybe what they're going to do moving forward. I think we've seen Paul in some Iverson cuts across the face of the offense where you're just getting them isolated on one side of the floor. I think they had some success in the one Orlando game doing that where they ended up getting them matched up on like Mo Wagner and Goga and some of their bigs, and he was able to punish them. That led pretty directly to Paul's assists and his ability to play make. So I think it really is just tapping into the versatility, right? Like you want to use him as an off-ball weapon, but you also want to use him as an on-ball, end of the clock. Like, okay, we're okay giving you the ball with 8 seconds on the shot clock and saying, while this might not be our best offense, it's at least pretty good offense. So it's going to have to be a constant dialogue with Nick Nurse and Paul George where Paul says, hey, I'd like the ball at this spot more early in the game, or I want to be involved as a pick and roll guy a little bit more. And frankly, I think even if it doesn't get Paul going individually, I do want to see more 2-man actions directly involving Paul and Joel, right? Because while I do still think the bulk of the offense should be Tyrese and Joel and hammering all those staple plays. They do need to keep expanding the playbook and adding to what they can run through the best guys on this team. So that if it's DHOs, if it's pick and rolls, I don't know exactly what it looks like yet. Some pin down plays to get Paul a shot, or even some inverted pick and rolls you could argue for, although Joel passing the ball as a on the move guy, a little thornier than maybe Paul doing so. Just some variety is all I'm asking for.
Well, even so, like you brought up the pin downs, and I looked this up before the show. He's getting about half as many pin downs or off screens shots as he normally gets.
Yeah.
Pin downs obviously being one way to do that. I'd love to see more of that. Just a little more of where he's not self-creating everything. And even when he is self-creating, I'd love to see some then big, small pick and rolls, some inverted pick and rolls the other way, where you can leverage like McCain and Maxey's threat of the shot to get him a little more space to drive, something to just make his life a little bit easier, just so we can see the ball go in the basket from the perimeter, or maybe a clear drive to the basket where a lot of these are contested. And quite frankly, he's done a pretty good job of making contested drives so far this year. It turns out, as Kyle points out all the time, being closer towards that 7-foot basket makes things a little 7 foot. What am I talking about?
10-foot basket for
The
a
7-footer being close to the 10-foot basket.
Because that's what Kyle was
You
complaining about the
combine
other
two
day.
ideas.
Yeah. At least I caught myself.
Still
before
a good
too far.
idea.
Anyway, if it was a 7-foot basket, man, I'd have a chance.
I'd be out there dunking still.
He can make those contested drives, but it'd just be easy. They're nice to get some things that are a little bit easier for him, and those are certainly some ways to do it.
So far, when watching Paul George when he's played these games, is that he likes that mid-range, back to the basket, fade away somewhere around there, or that pull-up jump shot where he takes a couple of dribbles and then the hesitation and pick up, knock it down, or attempted to knock it down. And that's what you get from him. And it has worked, where we saw him score the first 4, first 6, potentially make a pass there. And I wish he was healthy for this reason, while Embiid's still trying to find his way back. As you've talked about, guys, him on the move with some of those Iverson cuts and things of that nature. Some of that is just restricted right now because of that big brace that he's wearing and still playing through that bone bruise in his left knee. So he can't be as quick. Well, we've seen Embiid trust Kelly Oubre along that baseline to get that finish there, the catch and finish at the rim. And the same thing I could imagine for Paul George being in that spot where he could finish in that way to make it a little bit easier for him. And these are where the discussions, of course, as you talked about, have to come in, Kyle, with the head coach, with Nick Nurse. They talked about how much they were going to discuss in the offseason of how to play. And that was when Paul George was healthy and it wasn't dealing with these back-to-back knee injuries. But now they really have to talk about where I like the basketball, a game or two out here. Now we have a little more on film and even in practice time to see how they play it, what works, and how guys don't get lost in the offense, where they're still all three effective out there on the floor. And we've seen where he can set up. Who was it that he set up? Was it Yabusele right there in that dunker spot? It was KJ Martin in the dunker spot where we looked at each other and we said, oh, that's where you need him to be because of that pass that he can make, where Embiid is not really on the move going to make that play. Sometimes Maxey is not going to make that move and make that play on the move just like that either, because of his vision, where he's still developing that as this 5-year pro. But Paul George has it. He sees the floor really well, and it's up to him to make that play. So for him to be that shot creator, that distributor that he is, but also mixing in his shot, it will all come together. And I think even when he finally gets comfortable and starts to shed that brace, whenever they do say he's clear to do something along those lines, that's when we'll start to see it. But the catch and shoot numbers, that will stop people calling him 12 because he's not making those shots, right? Because they're saying, oh, well, 12 could do that. We've already seen that so much because he's missing those open corner threes. 12 could do that, or some of these other things. But definitely in that mid post, back to the basket. He likes that left side of the block. And then when he comes down the other end of the floor, it looks like he likes the right side of the block there, where he can certainly get things done there. But maybe that middle of the floor, pick and roll with Embiid and let those two work off of each other. And Maxey is so good as a catch and shoot player from behind the three-point line. Forgetting about the Jared McCain side, he could still be effective playing off of both of them because of how much he works off the catch and shoot. Somebody mentioned in the chat a little bit earlier, I saw it, where George is not that great on the catch and shoot. He's kind of like Harden in that sense, where he wants to put the ball on the floor. That's not true. He is a really good catch and shoot.
He's one of the best in the world, just not this year.
Just not to start the year.
Yeah, not to start the year. he is a pretty good catcher, just not this season, and that's why he gets compared to 12, unfortunately, with that one. But a lot there that could work off.
I would also say this with Paul. I think you can see some plays that he'll be able to take advantage of that they're already running that they haven't quite had the synergy down yet, right? So one of the actions that they have some flexibility out of is when they run horns, and it's like PG at one elbow and whoever it is, it might be Yabu, it might be Joel, whoever it is, stationed at the other one. And let's say strong side screener comes up on the ball, and the guy at the other elbow fakes to go screen for like a double drag and then back cuts, right? And so they've gotten some easy lob opportunities, easy entry passes out of sets like that, where there's some flexibility there. Like if the team overreacts and thinks, oh, back cut's coming here, Paul George, if he's that screener, instead could just flash out to the perimeter and you could potentially get him a clean catch and shoot look there, right? So that some of that is going to come down to running these plays that they've run where they're shorthanded and not their top personnel are out there, and watching how defenses cover them, right? And that's part of why you want to get stars in here, is because teams are so keen in on them, whether it's their cuts, where they're screening from, where they're trying to get to, that they'll overreact. And those stars are experienced in reading the overreact and then just finding the pocket of space to get their shot. So I think that's something we'll increasingly see over time with Paul, that as teams react not just to him, but to Joel and Tyrese and all in tandem, right? You're putting teams in scramble mode. He's going to be able to find the pockets of space that consistently open up around, let's say, the pick and roll that Joel and Tyrese are going to run. And then he'll find the favorable spot. He'll start being the beneficiary. And then it's really a snowball rolling down the hill for these guys.
And then for me, just that extra pass that he would then make to that player, maybe cutting to the basket along the baseline, maybe even in the middle of the floor, if he's coming from that weak side where he has that vision, has that experience to make that extra pass in that type of environment where that's just a good play overall for that hockey assist based on the movement and players not being stagnant and making sure they get to an open spot there to finish things off. And Hedva is saying, don't compare to the crumble merchant. Just to be clear,
the king of crumble.
We don't, but we have certainly seen enough in there, right, Derek, when he was struggling coming back, where people would say that it was a joke.
When you replace one guy with a new guy, the comparison's always going to be made. It doesn't mean that they are comparable as players. It means you like.
Let's also be clear,
every comparison doesn't mean that they're the same. It means you are literally just comparing one guy to the other.
And how many times, even in this short sample size, where he's made a turnaround jumper or face-up J in the mid-post, we're like,
even just look at,
and we're like, 5 years of not that guy.
Look, even with the processing speed,
so much easier.
The passing creativity, like it's
the extra pass.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, dumping it off to this dunker spot for that reason, but it wasn't us. It wasn't us. Right. And hopefully we get to see it a lot more with everybody surrounding out there on the floor together. All right. So with these games coming up, there are a lot of open days for the Sixers, but one game they do have is on Christmas. And on Christmas, the 76ers play the Boston Celtics. We'll be here for you for a pregame show. They play the 5:30 game, so our pregame show will be at 5.
Not me, though.
This guy's off. So
I drew the lucky straw this year.
Yes.
I got off last year. Then you get this year off, and next year
I get off. Okay, cool. All right,
we'll have a misery fest on Christmas next year. Me and Derek. Bah, humbug.
All right, so look, with them playing on Christmas, and it's funny, man, because I forgot, we knew about the commercial. We're out there doing Papa Shot, and we're saying, remember when I said to you guys, remember when they played the commercial back in the day where they shot the basketball and they had the bell that were on the nets and all that stuff when they made the shot? Well, they have a new version of that, and it's animated. So they included everybody who's playing, a player from each team that's playing on Christmas Day. So if we can show it, Bree, it was one that really stood out, of course. Look at KD in the Suns uniform. You got Jason Tatum, and you can hear...
Nice little,
is
it claymation? Is it stop motion?
Look at that. Wemby and Edwards, the new guys coming in. Jalen Brunson's in there. Look at that.
Mike Breen.
And then you get the new guy from the Sixers.
What?
Can we go back
All right.
just a little bit there, Bree? The new guy from the Sixers as it's Tyrese Maxey and for
What?
good reason. Good reason. He's the star, and you have Joel Embiid injured, Paul George injured. Is Tyrese Maxey is the star because he's probably the only one you can count on to play on Christmas Day. But was it Tyrese Maxey with the Claymation?
Unbelievable. So I unearthed a comparison that many people were making on social media that I think Bree also had handy. But the immediate reaction some people had was, why does Tyrese Maxey look like Willem Dafoe in this commercial? Look, I mean, that does not, and I will say, to give credit to whoever the artist or multiple graphic design, whatever, whoever worked on this, many of these players look like they look in real life. They're
They did pretty good.
close to the real thing.
Yes.
And then Maxey coming in looking like the Green Goblin. Like, what's going on here? I know Robert Eggers just put out a new movie. Maybe he's angling for a part in The Lighthouse 2 or the sequel to Nosferatu, because that's getting great reviews right now. My God.
That's bad.
I just don't.
It looks nothing
To
like
Kyle's
that.
point, I don't understand how you can like do well on 90% of the players, and then it's like you just skip Tyrese.
SB Cole said it looks like Chameleonaire. Man, I haven't thought of him.
So,
now I need to look at,
I
because
didn't
I haven't
say this
seen him
one
in
to
a
you
while.
guys. I was like, man, that looks a lot like Travis Hunter from Colorado. You know, the great two-way football player is going to be a top 3, top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Like, why do they make him look like Travis Hunter?
Yeah.
And were they panicking because they had Joel Embiid as the initial guy and they had to pivot pretty quickly and turn it and change it to Maxey? And I don't know, but it was almost like, how do you go 2K where they have these great things that they do, and sometimes in 2K they get it wrong? They got Maxey wrong in this one, or a bad bobblehead where you say that looks nothing like that guy. Aaron is saying it's the D Wade statue.
So,
how do you get that wrong?
I brought this up before the show, and it reminds me a lot of that, in part because the same guy who did the D Wade statue a couple years earlier did a Dirk statue that was very well received and almost, a perfect representation of Dirk. How do you get one perfectly right and one just god awfully bad?
And
I
this
don't
one
get
they
it.
got way
10
more
guys.
than one right. It was
10
like,
right.
yeah, they got a bunch right, including Mike Breen. They did that was a picture perfect Mike Breen, and then Tyrese Maxey gets thrown in there. Oh, that was, it's funny, right? We can
It is
laugh
funny.
about it, but
Yeah.
I feel a little bad
Looks
for
nothing like
Tyrese for
His first
I think
one,
it'll-
and they screw
getting
him
butchered a
over,
little
man.
bit.
They
Sorry,
screw
buddy.
him. Oh man, they
Thought
screw
we'd
him
have a
over.
little bit of a laugh at that one today. That was what's your favorite basketball commercial that you can remember?
Nike dribbling, the Nike
the
dribbling,
squeak, the
sneakers,
deet, deet, deet.
with the sneakers squeaks and the basketball is bouncing the sound. That's my favorite one of all time. This is probably a close second because this was fantastic. The original was fantastic with Steve Nash,
Right.
Kevin Durant, I believe it was at that time. There were a bunch of LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steve Nash, those players back then. The Nike commercial was probably my favorite of all time. Yeah, with the squeaking of the sneakers and the basketballs bouncing. How about you?
It's probably one of like 50 Michael Jordan commercials, honestly.
Yeah.
There's definitely a period of my life where I was like, man, what an inspiration.
Well, and he was in like every one of them too.
Yeah.
So
Like maybe it's my fault. I don't like all that stuff. I will say Allen Iverson having commercials with Jadakiss was also awesome because that was very unique. It still would be unique if you did it now, let alone back then. But
the little penny commercials.
the little
Those
penny
were great.
ones are great.
Those were great. The airport hangar ones where they had the Air Force team, where it was, only one I really remember is Rashid, but I think it's Rashid, LeBron James, where you get the slow motion walk.
Right.
They all have the warm ups on, and they're just walking. Rashid's in there with the headband on. You got LeBron with some of the other players as well. Those were the young guys at that time. That was one of my favorite ones. Also, the penny ones were great. Remember LeBron played all the characters and they were in the pool, and the Nike commercial where they were in the pool. He was the old guy. He was that I can't remember which sneaker it was. Obviously,
Had so many.
He has 22 now, but that one was really good as well. So those were some of my favorite ones back then. Yeah, man. You know, we could talk sneaker commercials all day.
That might be more your.
Check this out.
Oh my God,
Check this
that
out.
is something.
We need to ban Chris from watching the show so we can't get stuff like this in real time.
Canceled.
Gonna cut off his Wi-Fi right now.
Can't even use a good picture of me.
I know.
If any exists,
My
for
mouth is
that
open,
matter.
man.
But
It's like, no, you guys are good. I'm on the side. My mouth.
That was funny.
That was pretty good. Great job, Chris, our social media coordinator there. Kept Mike though in there though. Kept Mike from Boys to Men in there. He
Should've
gets the,
thrown
if you
like
really
Rich
want to be
Leroy in
show
there.
accurate, you got to add Sean Wayans into. He's got to have a supporting role somehow.
he's a big sports fan, so right. Good, put Sean.
To be
Wayans in
clear,
there.
for anyone who's not a regular watcher, no, I don't think Sean Wayans is in Boys to Men. You have to watch a few more episodes.
No. Don't explain the inside jokes.
It's very clear.
You got to be here
Listen,
You just got to be here
he's
every
awful.
day.
He's off.
I'm trying to be cognizant of the fact that there might be someone who's like, that white guy who thinks that everyone named Sean is the same. So I'm making it clear. No, I don't think Sean Wayans is in Boys to Men. I have.
We all know Sean Stockman is a
we
big
all
sports
know
fan
Sean
from Boys to
Stockman.
Men. Huge
Respect,
sports fan.
Respect
Yes.
to a local legend. It's a show joke about Sean Wayans. That's all.
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, that's great. Oh man, that was a good one.
Do we want to touch on this arena stuff very briefly?
Go for it.
That's more of a tomorrow thing.
We are
because-
running.
You can-
I guess you can
if
give
you
like
wanna
a
tease
quick,
it.
like
Yeah.
basically what they're discussing today.
So, guys, there is a vote upcoming today from City Council committee that it will essentially advance the proposal for a Center City Arena to the full City Council vote if it passes. Notably, today there was I don't know if it was I think it's an amendment or several amendments where the city is trying to push the community benefits agreement from $50 million to $100 million. And there are lots of stipulations in there of like where the money's going to. I believe some of the additions are security based. Some are to potentially help local businesses as they navigate the next, 7 years it would be between now and when the arena would get built or be completed to be built. I think that funding was supposed to go up to, or the city's asking for 10 million, which I believe is an uptick on around 2. So there's a lot of little granular details that this afternoon are being debated, argued, discussed. The city council committee is on recess until 4 p.m. today. So we're expecting to get some news on this probably in the hour after the show. So tomorrow on the show, I will have more details on, frankly, whether it passed or not and kind of what that means moving forward. Because I think the assumption is if it makes it out of committee, that it's going to pass on the full city council vote, which would be next week. But this is the big major step. And I will tell you, having talked to some Sixers people over there today, there's a lot of just like, we'll see, because this is certainly a last minute move by the city to try to extract as much as they can for the local neighborhoods and the local constituents.
So it sounds like the Sixers' thoughts on this vote are about the same as Joel Embiid's availability for the next game.
A little bit. And I think that the important context is that the Sixers have not, at least as of right now, the Sixers have not agreed to that 100 million, right? Like this is very much.
It's currently 50, right?
Yes, it's currently at 50. They've agreed to give 50 as part of the wide ranging package. And the city is now saying we want 100 and we wanted it on these different ways. So we will have more information and news on that as of tomorrow. But that I just wanted to make sure that because this will be breaking news probably in the next 45 minutes, that we at least touched on it and kept you guys up to speed as much as we can.
So that's just a little update for what we will discuss in a little bit tomorrow. We also have a super chat from yesterday that we got last minute that we want to jump in here. But we also want to tell you that if you are watching, of course, our show here on television and you want to keep watching, head over to allphly.com for more of the show. To continue to watch, and as we get ready to say our goodbyes on the, of course, the world famous roll call. But first, we have to give you our super chat from yesterday, which is from
Ego
Apologetics once again. What were you guys' thoughts on what Buddy Hield, now with the Golden State Warriors, had to say on Monday night? He was on a podcast, I believe it was, or was it?
I think he was on
interview?
NBA TV,
Was it
actually.
NBA TV?
Yeah,
Okay.
he got interviewed after a game.
And
yeah, I'm wrong on
some
that.
people were
I'm
making it out
double-checking.
with his response about he was taking a shot at the 76ers and how he plays a little more freely with the Golden State Warriors versus what he was here. So you guys' thoughts on what he actually had to say.
Yeah, so it was an interview with NBA TV, and the quote that I think people have taken as a direct shot at the Sixers was him saying, last year I didn't have that love for basketball. We wanted to find a team I can feel appreciated and loved. And so that seems pretty clear that his experience here in Philadelphia is not what he wanted. And, you know,
Probably his experience in Indy wasn't what he wanted either.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily blame him for being of the mindset like I want to play more, right? Like he was buried on the bench for
Gotta
the
make
Knicks
shots,
series,
man.
and like that's the way the game goes, right? You're a role player. If you're not living up to your role, you're not going to play. That doesn't mean you have to be happy about it. And I do think that the way the Warriors run their offense is more conducive to getting him going, but also after a real hot start, I do believe he has tailed off quite a bit
over
here
his
in
last
recent,
15 games.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, over his last 15 games, playing 22 minutes, averaging 10.9 points. So if that sort of sounds like the Buddy Hield you're familiar with, that's why every time he goes to a new spot, he goes absolutely nuts for a week or two, and then he goes back to being Buddy Hield.
Right. And look, that's most role players and most shooters, right? You go through the ebbs and flows, but the problem for Buddy has largely been, well, when he doesn't make shots, he's got problems all over the floor. And he did flash some playmaking and some other stuff in reps with Paul Reed when they were shorthanded last year. But by and large, he's an inconsistent player, and he's going to be that until his playing days are done. So the Sixers deciding not to play him a ton in the playoffs, I don't think was any big crime by them.
And I would just say the other thing behind that quote, and I don't deny that he probably feels that way, but he has more certainty now. He has a longer contract. What did he sign? Like a 4-year deal? Yeah. Like players like certainty. They like both certainty in where they're going to be. They like certainty in their role, and they like financial certainty as well. He has a lot more of that now. Even with his minutes falling off, he has a lot more of that now. And quite frankly, just playing in an up-tempo environment like that is where he was probably best suited for. So I think it's true. It doesn't mean that like there's anything inherently wrong with the Sixers.
No.
It just wasn't a great fit.
Yep. Absolutely. So those are your thoughts right there. We appreciate it again.
We also got another super chat.
Another super chat?
Look at Jess. Jess says, don't have anything special to say. I just wanted to do a super chat because I love you all. Crying, laughing emoji with a heart next to it. Jess, that's very sweet of you.
What color heart?
The blue heart.
Was blue heart.
That's
That's her new thing.
new thing. New Sixers run, new Jess.
She changed her. And first of all, appreciate you. We all appreciate you. Appreciate Super Chat as well. But changing your identity in such a fundamental way as going from a purple heart to a blue heart, it's still just throwing me off.
Well, she's still
It's throwing
in
me
her
off.
face is in there.
No, but the heart was a defining
It
characteristic.
was. But it's a heart. I mean, it's not purple, but there's still a heart.
She was Jess with the purple heart.
Very-
That's what
very
Kyle
true.
said every time that we called her out.
Very true.
It's throwing me for a loop. That's all.
Very
We all
true.
know Jess.
It's not right or wrong. I'm just struggling to get used to it. That's all.
Very true. Very true.
And then we had a Winona identity crisis at one point. She was getting
Well, yeah,
Like a
her
different-
computer locked her
the
out.
computer
Yeah.
locked her out,
Philly
and there's
girl,
just
yeah.
we're getting thrown for a loop over here with some of these name and identity changes. Love you no matter what your pseudonym is on a given day, but helps us out on things like the roll call for some consistency.
Absolutely. Love you all. We appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat there, Jess. And we wanted to make sure we shouted out. What was the other one from yesterday? Ego? What Ego?
Emi Apologetics.
Oh, all right. There you go. There
Can't
you go.
believe I remember that off the top of my head.
I don't know how.
Well done,
We
sir.
love all of you as well.
You're
Obviously.
a pro. That's why.
Yeah.
All right. Time for the world famous roll call. Let's have at it.
Thank you, everybody, for checking in with us today, as you do always on so many days, so many nights. It doesn't matter if it's 60 degrees and we're eating hot chocolate to the disgust, or eating hot chocolate, drinking hot chocolate to the disgust of Money Mar, or if it's hot in the summer and we're choosing chill with our friends at Coors Light. You guys are always here with us.
Lord Michaels is back.
Lauren Michaels checking in. Oh, wow. Hold on.
With 7 hearts. Blue
Another
hearts.
last minute super chat from Jess, who switched back to purple.
That is much
and
better.
said, is this better, Derek?
And threw some funds at you,
Wow.
Derek. Look at that.
Throwing money at the screen.
Purple Heart Jess is back. As
Throwing money and
Heaven
purple
says.
hearts at the screen. Thank you, Jess. Once again, thank you also to all our other wonderful
And it does
people
feel like
in
some
here.
normalcy has returned to the world.
All right. Well, hopefully some
We need it.
W's continue to come, because I think Blue Heart era was
That is true. They're winning
fairly
more games with
successful.
Blue Heart.
Jess, if you switched the mojo, I don't know. Anyway, thank you to Remo K. Thank you to Darkness.
Oh, turn the lights down.
Thank you to Brian Knight. Thank you
Be night.
to my girl Winona.
Nona's
hanging
back.
out with us.
No
Finally
meetings.
out of that meeting.
No meetings.
Thank you to AA Ron. Thank you to Money Mar, Valhos.
Brian said, Kyle eats hot chocolate?
Thank you to Hedfa.
Look, we talk a lot, man.
Thank
You're
you
going
to
to screw up every now
Thank
and
you to
then.
Lord Michaels. Get me on
Lord,
Saturday night.
We're
you,
ready, Lord. The
you
season is back.
MFer.
We're ready, Lord.
Malk C10 hanging out with us.
Need to see
what up to
who's-
Malk?
who's
Mom's
hosting.
grandchildren
Hey, Mom.
hanging out. Wow, Marvel. Bootzilla.
Boots.
Flyers 99. K-Red. Fly Parks. Igavini. Genie in the building. Colby Colbs
What
hanging
up,
out.
Cope? Great show, Cope. Great show.
Tom
Love your show.
Jackson, who says, I don't care where the arena is as long as it's in Philly somewhere, brother.
Now, is that Tom
We
Jackson
are
from
aligned.
ESPN with Boomer?
Music Lover 31 also hanging out with us. Many people
Look at
hanging out with
JH
us today.
checking in for the
JH says,
roll call.
Checking in just for roll call. Look at that.
Love it.
Thank you to everybody, even if I didn't get to you or even if you
I
never
saw Sal
checked
in there,
in.
too.
What up to Sal?
What up, Sal?
I don't know if it's the Sal who tries to make me say dumb things, but
No,
shout out to Sal.
no. You met Sal.
That's right. You're right.
Wait, what was his thing?
Anyway, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so
Imagine
you get
Dragons,
notifications
right? That's who you're talking about?
each and every time we go live. Please hit that thumbs up button as well on the way out to help us out in the algorithm, but also because it's a thank you to our wonderful super producer, Bree, who's with us each and every
What up,
day.
Bree?
Doesn't matter if it's blue hearts, purple hearts, red hearts. Bree is here.
All the hearts. What up, Bree?
All the hearts for Bree. Goodbye, everyone. We'll be back once again at 3 o'clock tomorrow.
See you.
Most likely with arena news. We will see you then.
Sal's Pizzeria.
We all silly like the mayor.